Hi, everyone. It's Maria here with Etcher Studio. If you can hear me, please type llama in the chat. I can see we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Etcher Studio live demo. My name is Maria, and I'm your host for today, and I'm here with Alina. Hi,
Hello.
Alina. We are here to bring you another Etcher live demo, and I'm super excited for today's watercolor cityscape. It's going to be amazing. Now, just a few reminders before we get started. If you can subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notified of every new demo, go ahead and click the bell so you get notifications, and you can subscribe to our email newsletter as well. Some people say that we've been getting thrown to spam, so if you want to whitelist our email address, that's perfect. And if for today, grab the link of today's demo, share it with your friends. The more the merrier. This is such a wonderful way of spending a Friday afternoon or a Saturday morning, depending on where in the world you are. Also, I'm going to be dropping a link to a live demo survey, so please fill that out. Surveys help us determine if the content we are providing is good for you, if you want to see more artists, and what other things you want to see. So please go ahead and fill out that survey. Now, if you have any questions for Alina today, please write the word question all in caps and then write your question normally. This is just so that I can quickly browse and find your question. Now, I will be grabbing the questions and asking them to Alina if it makes sense of what she's working on at the moment. And if it doesn't make sense, then I'll save them for the Q&A portion at the end. But fear not, I am seeing your questions. Now, today we have a 1 hour time limit. But before we get started, Alina, we would love to take a quick tour of your sketchbook and or your loose leaf paintings.
Yeah, of course. So I'll just show you some of my, should I show them here? Okay. So yeah, these are just some of the sunny watercolor cityscapes that I like painting. This is in Florence. Oops. This is in,
I'm spotlighting your
okay,
face.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, this is Barcelona. I really like sunny, sun-filled cityscapes because the sun creates some interesting shapes in a city, and yeah, it's fun to paint. So this is the one that we will be working on during the workshop.
Oh yeah, that's the mini workshop, everyone. So if you want to sign up for that one, I'll be dropping the link very, very soon.
Yeah, just another one in our city where I live. I live in Victoria, Canada. So yeah, I'll just show you some of those.
They're so beautiful.
Thank you.
All that shadows. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I love the contrast between light and shadow. It's something that's really interesting to me in a painting. So you can see even without color, you can have a really interesting finished painting, finished looking painting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so that's about it. Maybe I could get started with the presentation.
Sure, let's go ahead. Audience, if you are painting along, please grab your supplies. Otherwise, remember that this will be saved, so you can go back and get your supplies later. And right now, just watch and ask your questions. I see people from all over the world. We have people from Florida, from Singapore, from Minnesota, Western Australia, Columbus, Ohio, Oregon, Madison, Pennsylvania. So we're spread out all over the world. So yeah, it's super cool. All right, so go ahead, Alina. Do you want me to spotlight your desktop, your working space?
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
1 second. All right. So let me first get started with how I normally choose reference photos and why I choose them. So it's a really important step because it really defines all of your process. So I guess photo, or if you are plein air, just looking for something to paint on location. I look for some interesting contrasts between light and shadow. Oops, contrasts. So what does it mean? In a sunny cityscape, you know, it's quite obvious. You have the sunlit part and shadows, and it really transforms the cityscape. So when I go out, I usually go sometimes in the morning hours or evening hours, because that's when the sun is low and it creates interesting shadows. So you can see here for some reason, for example, and for example, in this painting as well, you can see only this portion of the building is lit because it's late in the evening. So you have a lot of space with shadow and a little bit of space with light. And that's, to me, that calls to me, and that's interesting to me. So maybe that would be something you might want to paint as well. So sunny days. Sometimes I also like to paint nocturnes. Oops. And rainy scenes. And it's funny because I wanted to show you some examples, but I don't have any because all of them have sold. So maybe it's a good tip for you, so you know those are popular paintings. Yeah.
It's always
yeah.
good news.
Yeah, just you know, as an example, this is one of the paintings, just photos.
Mm.
Okay, so that's one thing, is I look for contrast, or maybe I'll zoom in.
Oh, thank you.
For contrast, and I also look for perspective. So I'll show you what that means. And when you have perspective in your painting, it creates a sense of movement and dynamic. It makes your painting more dynamic. So you see the perspective lines all go, I'll take a pencil. They all go in this direction. So you have the vanishing point. That's the point where all lines meet. And I have that pretty much in every painting that you see. And what it does, it creates a more movement, more depth in your painting. So just to compare that to, for example, this one, there's not that much sense of depth in this one, but it's not a problem, because here the idea was to show this building, to highlight. So it's like a portrait of this building. So of course you want to think, do you want to have that sense of movement, or maybe it's more of a sort of calm and solid painting like this one, where you just focus on the main subject. Yeah, so that's about it. These are the main points that I look for when I'm out taking photos, or when I'm setting up for a plein air. Interesting contrast, shapes, and perspective.
Okay.
So are there any questions?
So far, they're saying that thank you for detailing your process.
Okay, awesome. Great. Okay, so the next one, after you took your photo, I will open it. 1 second. So that's the photo that we are working on today, the painting. So after you took your photo, you want to really think about, what are you trying to show in your image? So what is the idea? And it's unique for everyone, of course. So really determine what is the idea. For me, in this particular one, I guess I wanted to highlight both the cathedral. It's like the main subject here. It's so interesting and intricate details and everything. And also the sense of depth. So we have the foreground, then the cathedral, and the background right here. So I wanted to show this kind of step-by-step going into from one plane to another. So
Yep.
Once you've established your idea, that's going to help you with all the rest of the process. So it's really important to kind of sit down and think, okay, what do I want to show here? And again, I'll just show you some examples. You know, here again, I wanted to highlight this building. Of course, it's a beautiful building, and you have some lines leading up to it. And yeah, so that's the main idea, is to highlight this building. And for example, in here, I wanted to show that evening atmosphere and also the contrast between light and shadow. So you have the like outdoor cafe. So hopefully when you look at this painting, you can feel that evening atmosphere, both with the use of light and shadow, color, and the subject matter. So
Yeah.
you know, you look at it and you think it's after work and people are drinking, eating, whatever. So that's why it's important to just think about your idea, and it's okay if you don't get it right away, but at least you have some sense of what you're showing. And then after that, I do some sketches. I'll show you. I have a sketchbook that is pretty much finished. And I'll zoom out. And basically all over that sketchbook, I have these little sketches that maybe don't make sense to anyone, but they make sense to me, and they help me to understand the idea, really. So
do you sketch every time you're gonna start a new painting?
yes. Yes, because in watercolor especially, I find it's important to have a plan,
Right.
and to know what you're going to show, because there's not much room for making mistakes and for correcting mistakes, especially. That's the beauty of watercolor, but it's also, it can be frustrating. So that's when we move on to sketches. But before we move on to sketches, I wanted to go over some of the composition principles and design elements that I use in my painting. So hopefully that would be useful to you. I'm just going to take a quick break. If there are any questions.
If you guys have any questions, everyone remember to type it on the chat and I can ask Alina for you. But so far, they're all just watching and enjoying the content as much as I am.
Awesome. Okay. So the type of composition that I normally use, it's called the rule of thirds. I'm sure a lot of people know about it because it's widely used in photography, and even on your phone when you crop your image, these three lines appear. So basically the idea is that you divide your sheet into three equal spaces, and you place your area of interest in one of these intersections. Gotcha. So I'm going to mark the main focal point in one intersection, and then if you want to have another one, but not as a significant one, then you can have another one and another one here. And you don't have to have them exactly in these locations. You can have them just somewhere. Say you have like the main one here and another one here, another one here. So it's not, you don't have to follow this to a T. So that's one rule that I use, and even rule of thirds. And even just keeping in mind, you don't even have to use it, but just keeping in mind that when you have a subject, it may be interesting not to put it right in the center, but to create some, just gonna draw an apple, to create some interest and have it off center basically. So that's the idea. Another principle that I use is, well, I've talked about it a little bit, but it's the flow, I guess, of your eye. So when the viewer looks at a painting, you want to guide them through it. So you can have different different ways of how you want your viewer to look at the painting. So normally in the Western world, we read from, well, in any, I guess, in any language, but except for Japanese and Arabic, I believe, we read from left to right. So we also read paintings from left to right. So that's kind of the natural way you'd be looking at a painting. And if you go from top to bottom, it creates a kind of sense of inspiration, maybe ease, like your feelings maybe heightened, or I guess if you look at, just show you some examples. I think, I don't know how you might perceive this painting, but when I was thinking about it, I thought maybe, the viewer, you have this dark, deep shadow, and then you focus on the building, and you look at it all the way to the top, and it creates this feeling of inspiration or something like that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, great. So yeah, there are different ways you can, if you go something like this, from top to bottom, it creates more sense of maybe sadness or something like that. And then if you go like this, it's more like expansion and just the sense of space at the depth of the space. So there are lots of things to think about when you're planning your painting, but it's just another way to help you convey your idea, really. Everything that I'm talking about here with the composition are just tools for you to use to help bring out your idea. Okay, so the next design element is we're going to talk about values. So in a painting, we usually, in a photo or in real life, there are so many values, from the lightest light to the darkest dark, so many shades. But in a painting, we usually try to limit them to just one or, oh, sorry, not one, 3 or 4. So 4 being the darkest one, and then 1 being the lightest one. And I usually do it with a pencil, but I'm doing it with a marker so you can see it better.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so how does it work usually in perspective? Things that are closer to us, they have higher value. I guess they appear darker, and they also have higher contrast. So, for example, if this is the sky, the closer to us it is, the darker it is, and then it kind of fades. And similarly with ground. So maybe you can even sense the sense of perspective already. When you have things that are closer to us are darker, and the further you go, the lighter they become. And how can we use it in a painting or in your composition? We try to have the darkest darks next to the lightest lights in your focal point or in your area of interest. So I'll show you here. For example, I have the lightest here and the darkest here. So that's the contrast, and that contrast brings your gaze toward this area. And similarly, in this painting, I had kind of, this is one of the area of interest, and then this is another one. So you have the contrast here as well. So that's how you can use values to your advantage when you're thinking of your composition. If you have something, your area of interest where you want to bring your viewer and keep them there for a long time, looking at that area, you want to have the contrast between the darkest dark and the lightest light in your focal point. Okay, so that's values. And the last thing we're going to talk about is edges. And what we try to do is to have hard edges on in your focal point again, and soft edges everywhere else. Because the hard edge, it brings your attention. I mean, if you look at these two and compare them, this one brings your attention to it, and this one maybe not as much. So again, looking at this painting, you know, have the hard edges where the umbrella is, the people are, the hard edge here, but you know, here I try to make it soft so that your attention doesn't go out of the picture. And similarly here in the distance, everything is soft.
They're saying in the chat that the edges are like lost and found edges.
Yeah.
It's a very
yeah,
poetic way.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so normally you would have the hard edges, defined edges closer to you, and the soft edges far away in the distance. But in a cityscape, I wouldn't say it always applies, because you paint subjects that are quite close to each other anyway. Like we're in a landscape, you might have I don't know, a field going many kilometers away, but here it's, you know, even this building is not that far, but still look at the contrast here, the edges here, and then it slowly fades away. Okay, awesome. So yeah, so we've covered that part. And hopefully these are useful to you. I encourage you to apply these in your sketches these are tools. And after that, I do a sketch, and I ran out of paper. Sorry.
Don't worry about it. While Alina is getting her paper, I just want to motivate everyone to sign up for her mini workshop. She's going to be teaching you so much more about color, about how to apply all of these lessons to your paintings. So I dropped the link on the chat. Alina's workshop is May 30th. You can click there and it will take you to a link so you can sign up. Remember, these are limited space only. So if you don't sign up, you might miss out, but, and of course you will get a recording at the end. So if you can't attend live, don't worry about it. You will get a recording, and the recordings are available for as long as Etcher is around. So hopefully for a very, very, very long time.
Great, thank you, Maria. Okay, so then I move on to the sketches. After we established our idea, and usually I make about 3 or however many it takes me to really distill the idea of the painting. And normally I do them with a pencil, but I'm just gonna use a marker. So first one, I just kind of sketch out the elements that I see in the painting. So that's the horizon line, or the horizon line is at your eyesight. So I'm just drawing this little eye, and it helps with the building your city. So yeah, usually I kind of just put down the elements that I see really quickly, and already by doing that, I can eliminate a lot of unnecessary elements. But for example, here I'm drawing these cars in the shadow, and there's this tree. They're not meant to be pretty or anything. They're here to help you work out your idea. So I'm just putting down pretty much everything as I see. Okay. Something here and some branches here. And it's looking quite messy, but it kind of helps you to understand your subject. And when you draw these lines, it helps you to feel the structures in the photo or plein air. So that's the purpose of it. And now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, do I need these cars? And probably not, because they almost blend with this shadow, and they kind of they overlap this background that for the idea that I want to show, the depth, I really want to show that part. And then when you look also at these complex shadow patterns, are they necessary? Because there's a lot of detail in them, and if we put them down, they might draw your attention. Just going to zoom out. They might pull your attention from the main subject. So these are the kind of things that you might think about when you do these sketches. So then I do another one, and in this one I simplify it even further. So here's the church or the cathedral. And So
Really helpful.
Sorry?
This is really helpful.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Great. That's great. Because yeah, I want to give you some tools so you can use that for your own references, right? Not just repeat. So yeah, like we've talked about, we decided to simplify this shadow. So I'm just gonna put everything in shadow here. And we remove the cars and keep this building to show the sense of depth, you know, the lines going into perspective. And putting the tree here.
So it's really not about copying what it is on the picture exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you want to modify it to highlight your idea. So like I was saying, in this painting, I wanted to show the sense of depth, you know, from foreground, cathedral, and background. So these cars were really unnecessary for this particular painting. But you know, in another one, you might as well keep them if they are something that will help to convey your idea. Okay, so and I put these branches, and so now I'm looking at it. Okay, it looks a bit more simpler now, and I think it looks clear. But what I don't like about this piece is that it kind of covers this background area and kind of squishes this space. And for someone, maybe that's interesting and maybe they want to work with it. But for me, I want to have it sort of open. I want this space to be open. So I do another one, another sketch. And honestly, I mean, usually it takes 3. For me, it's the magic number to figure out the, you know, the idea and how I want to show it. But sometimes it takes more. Sometimes it only takes like 1. So it just depends, and you just want to try it until you feel like, okay, you know, I can work with it further.
We have some comments in the chat saying that it's like writing an outline before writing the essay.
Yeah.
Simplifying. So yeah, it's really connecting with the audience, what you're saying.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's great.
I know you can't see the comments, but they are really, what you're saying is really resonating with them.
Oh, I'm happy. Thank you. Okay, so yeah.
Ta-da!
So that's kind of the final one. And we can work with our watercolor from here. So you can see now, like this space opened up. You can see in the background, and I think because this foreground is so simple, it you know, we don't stop here for a long time. We move our gaze to the cathedral and we stop there for a while because there's so many little details, interesting details that we're gonna draw. So it's gonna hold our attention. Yeah. So yeah, that's the process. And after that, now we're gonna move on to the value sketch in watercolor. So,
and just to let you know, we are 34 minutes into the demo.
perfect. Yeah, the sketch only takes like 10 minutes, so no problem. And if you want to paint along, you can use any a dark color. I'm going to use sepia, but you can use indigo or neutral tint or something like that. Black, if you have black. I'm just going to get organized a little bit.
So while Alina is getting her workspace organized, I wanted to let everyone know that I'm dropping the link to our survey on the chat, so you can tell us your comments over there. And then also reminding everyone that we have a new website. It's etcherstudio.com. And that's where we have all of our educational section covered. And that's where you can find access to the mini workshops. And we still have our supplies there in case you want to purchase some wonderful watercolor paper to try out Alina's live demo and mini workshop. And yes, she did pack a lot of information in 30 minutes, Kitty. This was super educational. Imagine what you're going to learn in the mini workshop.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I just wanted to give people some tools that they can use in their own painting. So I used to be really confused when I would go to some online classes, and we would repeat the painting after a master, which helps you to understand the technique, which is great, but it doesn't teach you how to come up with your own painting, right? So hopefully this helps.
Very true.
So, okay, just making a quick drawing. I'm putting down the horizon line.
What kind of pencil is that?
Oh, yes, sorry. Just a regular pencil. I use 6B, or you can use 4B. I just try to use a softer one because it doesn't damage the paper as much.
Right, right.
Yeah, with watercolor paper, if you like try to remove it and rub it, it will get damaged pretty easily.
Yeah, you get those like grooves in the paper, and then it looks horrible.
Yeah, yeah. So it's oh, and just so your drawing is kind of loose and you can do it quickly, you hold the pencil like not like this, but more further away. So this way you can do it quickly and draw straight lines, and yeah, it's easier to be loose with your sketch when you hold the pencil kind of far away.
That's a great tip.
Thank you. So, and the vanishing point, as you notice, I'm bringing all the lines of the buildings to this point. So we have a realistic
perspective.
Yeah, perspective. Thank you. Okay. And it's interesting how you have so many little buildings, and they kind of help to lead our way into the background as well. So there's that tree. And the shadow is going to be somewhere here. Okay.
And you're working at an angle? Your
oh,
paper?
Yes. Sorry. Yes, so I put just a tape underneath, so it has a bit of an angle so the water can go down. Okay, so I'm taking sepia. I don't know if I can. Okay. But yeah, like I said, just you can use indigo or neutral tint. And right now I'm going with the lightest wash. So pretty much filling up the whole area except for the highlights. So when you're doing that, it helps you to understand which elements are going to be the lightest, and especially because in watercolor that is so important, because you can't really add the light after you paint it over it.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know where to preserve light. Okay. And I'm trying to also have a bit of a gradient in the sky, so I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more, because like we talked about, anything that's closer to us is a little bit darker.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then we keep going. So I left the lightest parts in the building, and everything else is in this, I guess you could say value number 1,
Mm-hmm.
in the lightest one. I'm gonna use a tissue, and I wet, so the brush is wet, but I'm gonna remove some moisture and then soak up this puddle that formed.
Oh, it's thirsty.
Yes, yes, thirsty brush. Okay, so we're done with the first layer.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to bring a fan, so I'm just going to use a hair dryer. I'm just going to use a fan, but it's not going to take long. And normally that's what I do anyway. Like I use a fan to dry painting instead of a hair dryer, because the hair dryer, it can burn the pigment and make it kind of dull.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's what I've been experiencing. I think it depends also on the paper and the paints and everything, but
Mhm.
I definitely felt that. So
Interesting. Well, while you are fanning away, we have a question here asking, what is the purpose of a value painting?
so yes, the value painting helps you to establish the darkest darks and the lightest lights and everything in between. So when you go to work with color, color can really confuse you, because you look at the sky and it's blue, and you might have a tendency to just paint it all blue. But in fact, what if for your idea, you want the sky to actually be light? And for example, if you start without the value painting, you might get some things confused. So in this sketch, we're going to establish, okay, this tree is going to be quite, and the shadow are going to be quite dark. This building is going to be also quite dark. And then you have the really light edge of the building here. So when you have dark next to light, it will attract your attention and help you focus on that spot. And then the background is going to be quite light, so we don't really focus on that part. But if you start just with color, you might not think about these things, and you might, for example, make this building, too dark and this shadow too light, and then it doesn't look quite realistic. Yeah, because the things that are closer to us, they are darker, and everything that goes further in the distance is lighter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it helps you to prepare for color. So I think it's done now. I hope I answered the question, but if I didn't,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you always do a value painting before you do your plein air or your photo work?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a long process for me because, but I find when you figured out your idea, your composition, the values, then working with watercolor is much easier, and you get a successful result with less less effort. You can just relax and paint when you know, okay, I know, the background's going to be lighter. This is going to be dark. I know I need to leave this white.
Yeah,
And
less guesswork.
yes, exactly. Okay, so now we're gonna work with the shadow. So let's see. I'm gonna re-wet this tree just a little bit because, like we were talking about the edges, I want to have hard edges on the cathedral and everywhere else more softer edges so they don't attract as much attention. So I'm just gonna pre-wet it slightly so that it's more soft. And notice how I'm holding the brush also, like the pencil, quite far away.
Yeah.
So it helps you to be loose. And I'm just kind of smudging things around so there's a bit more variety, even though it's not that important in a value study. In a value study, it's just important to, well, establish the values. So, but it's good to think also about the edges. What's your plan for the edges? So now I'm holding the brush almost parallel to the paper so that you have this like sparkly kind of quality to the shadow, because even when you observe outside, you always have some little bits in the pavement that reflect the light, so it's not always completely dark. Yeah. So I'm gonna just drop in some, add some variety, and I think that's it. And let's move on to the cathedral. So have to be a little bit more careful here because you want to be a bit more precise with it.
It's amazing how you're using just one brush.
Yeah, I don't have that many brushes, to be honest. I try a few and then kind of go back to some of them, but I need to upgrade. This one is, I really like it, but it's small. So I want to paint bigger. I need a bigger brush. But yeah, so an important thing about the brush is that you have a really sharp tip so that you can paint both details and also
also remember, everyone, do not use your watercolor brushes for gouache or acrylic. You'll just murder them.
Oh, has that happened to you?
It did. I lent a friend some brushes and she used them for something else, and they were just ruined. I was sad. They were not that expensive, but I still was sad.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, I like my brushes. It's a shame. Also, in the matter of brushes, everyone, we sell a really nice set of brushes that you can get from Etcher. And did you know we are a vegan brand? So that means cruelty-free. So I'll drop a link to our brushes here on the chat.
That's great.
Yeah.
I have some synthetic brushes, but also some squirrel. This is actually a mix of squirrel and synthetic. So, but these days they have really good synthetic brushes too that imitate.
Yeah, our brushes are really, really thirsty. So despite being synthetic, they really soak up water.
Oh, awesome. So as I was painting, you can see the cathedral is quite dark, and then I was adding this building lighter, and this is quite light. So that's what we talked about, values shifting. Yeah, from dark to light in the distance. And I'm just gonna use a synthetic brush. I mean, this is not necessary. I'm just adding details, but we've already figured out everything. So, but I'm using a synthetic brush with lots of pigment, and I'm just gonna put on some windows. Just for fun. It's unnecessary here. But, and maybe sprinkle some drops just to add some variety.
Is that just water?
Yeah, just water, like you just wet your fingers and just like this.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but we will do that in the workshop here. I don't know. It's in the value study, the main thing we're trying to establish is the values. It doesn't need to be pretty or anything like that. So, but you know, we are artists, so we like to make things pretty.
Yeah.
I'm just adding some, I don't know. Like I said, it's unnecessary, but okay. Yeah, I think we're done. So as you can see in this study, we've worked from the lightest value. So put everything in one wash and then just left the highlights. And then we added the dark shadow here. So define this foreground space and then added some darks in the cathedral to bring the viewer's eye to this contrast between light and dark. And then as we fade into the distance, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. So, yeah.
Yep, everything you taught us applied in one piece. Awesome. Can we see the color version we're gonna do of this on the mini workshop?
Yeah. So it's a pretty small painting as well, just slightly bigger, but so it will be easy to complete, I think, in the 1.5 hours that we'll have. But yeah, so you can see how we've applied what we've learned from the value study. Let me show it.
Yeah.
Right next to it.
Let's see it side by side.
So there you go. Yeah, so you can see how we've applied that knowledge that we learned from here in this finished piece.
Absolutely, yeah. So then when you're working on the color version, you always keep your value study near.
Exactly, yes. I always have it in front of me and I look at it even more often than at the photo actually. So I definitely refer to the value study for the values, and then I look at the photo when I just need to see some details, you know, how this is constructed, but how to draw things, how to draw these details. But yeah, definitely look at this a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can see how directly related it is. Like if I squint, the values are perfectly preserved.
Mhm.
So we have a question about the paper you're using.
Oh, yes. So I use a variety of papers, but normally artist because it's mostly what is available here where I live. And the thickness is here. Oh, it's sometimes I use 90 pound. I think, yeah, this is 90 pound. This is 90 pound. And for the sketches, I just use the back of like some
Oh,
failed failed paintings or and then yeah, so you can use, it's quite thin, but I really don't see a big difference for smaller works. For bigger, I usually use 140 pound. It's a little bit thicker, and the texture cold press usually, but recently I've also been enjoying rough, and it's just a little bit rougher, but not that much. So yeah, that's
yeah.
what I use.
Our sketchbooks, everyone, have some really nice paper in them. So if y'all want to check those out, the Perfect Sketchbook actually has 140-pound paper in it. So it is great for watercolorists. I'll drop that link on the chat as well. And since we are near the end of our time here with Alina, I want to encourage you all to ask her questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them on the chat so I can let her know all your pressing questions about watercolor and value studies. So they're asking if you usually do your color work at home, or like if you do the value study on site and then go back home and do the color.
I usually do everything at home, although it's a really good idea, and I should practice going on plein air more often. But yeah, I usually do everything at home just because it's convenient and I'm lazy. But yeah, no, it's good. Sometimes I do go outside and I just do pencil sketches outside. And I mean, now it's summer, so it would be a good idea to start going on plein air and doing at least the value studies on plein air. But yeah, I've been doing some color works on plein air as well, but just not that many. You know, it's so convenient to be in a studio, and everything is so comfortable.
It is. It is. We have another question if you're going to use pencil on the color version to sketch it out.
Yes, of course. And if I zoom in, I think you can see even some pencil lines left over here. I think pencil is part of the painting, and I don't mind having pencil lines showing up. I think it shows your process, so it can be beautiful. So yeah, I definitely use pencil, but yeah, trying to use like a soft 2B, 4B, 6B, something like that.
Yeah, to make sure you don't scratch the paper.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Alina. We're getting some really great feedback from the audience on the chat. They are very thankful for your comprehensive tutorial and the description of your process. They're also saying that this is a very good taste of what's to come in your mini workshop. And I gotta tell you all, this is gonna be amazing. I'm going to stop spotlighting your work so they can see your beautiful face. Aha, there we are. And we have one final question. If there are any artists that have influenced you through your watercolor journey?
There are so many, honestly. Like I cannot even tell you because there's so many. But I started with actually all of the watercolor that I learned was through online classes. So I've been taking a lot of online classes, honestly. So many, and also I've been learning from YouTube. So there are lots of free classes, and I started my YouTube channel recently too. If anyone wants to subscribe,
Yes.
only a couple of tutorials, but
Please
yeah,
go ahead
so
and follow Alina on all the social media and show her your work. We are also, I should probably say this right now before everyone leaves. So we have giveaways. So if you tag us with the hashtag #EtcherStudio and you tag us with the work that you've done with this live demo or just attending the live demo, you are eligible to win a prize. And we're giving prizes every week. So you're eligible to win a mini workshop voucher, a sketchbook, anything like that. So go ahead and tag us. And I'm sure that Alina will also love to see what you've created following her guidelines and this very, very instructive live demo, which has been very amazing. We have some people saying that they've already signed up for your class, for your mini workshop. So that is awesome. Everyone, we love to hear when you sign up. It's so encouraging. I'm going to drop Alina's mini workshop link again. You can see me. You can see my face when I copy things. So there you go. There we go. So sign up. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you so much, Alina. This was amazing. Honestly, this was a wonderful, wonderful live demo. And I can't wait to see the mini workshop and all the amazing work that you're going to be doing there.
Thank you, Maria. I'm really excited too for the workshop. So
thank you, everyone. Our next live demo will be Ian the Hog. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his last name. He's going to be painting a bird tomorrow at noon EST. And please join us for our next Etcher live demo. It's such a lovely way to spend a Friday. Everyone, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you, Alina, for this demo. And we will see you all next time. Awesome. So bye, everyone.